Have a good meeting. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for your help.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Of course. Have a good night.
Do the same. Good evening, everybody. Thank you once again for coming on the line with us tonight. We don't plan to hold long, but what I would like to do is just to give a few more minutes to let a few more people join. Welcome as always to Lee Chung. I see committee member Margaret Della with us. I see Miss Fry from Marble Hill Management with us on tonight, and Judy Green, and also a 718-562 number. So we want to just thank all of you for joining us on this evening. I would ask you to give us a few more minutes before we get started. Tonight will be a short meeting where we will be discussing, for the most part, budgetary requests for fiscal year 2024, and try to get some prioritization on those requests as well, so they can be submitted post haste. Give us a few minutes, and then we will begin our meeting. Good evening, everyone. We are going to get started with our March Housing Committee meeting. The time now is 7:11 p.m. I want to thank each and every one of you that has come on the line with us on this evening. We appreciate, of course, our committee members that have joined us on tonight. I see Ms. Fry from Marble Hill Management, Mr. Tony Edwards, who is the Tenant Association President. He has joined us. Thank you once again for Ms. Lee Chong joining us, as well as David Gelman. We want to get started. Like I said, I don't want to hold you guys long, but what we do have on tonight pretty much is a discussion in regards to our fiscal year 2024 budget requests. So at this time, I only noticed, let's see, that Margaret Della is on the line with us from the committee. So we won't do a roll call, but what I will do is continue the meeting, and hopefully somewhere along the line, more committee members will join the call. Unfortunately, like I said, because of the current mail issues and the computer issues, we won't do the approval of the minutes from February, but we will backtrack in April to get those minutes approved for March and April. As far as the chairman's report goes, I don't have too much of a report, so to speak, but I want to thank Tony Edwards for his invitation to the early part of March. I had an opportunity to be in a meeting with some of our elected officials. We had Carmen De La Rosa there. We also had, I think, Ms. Sanchez, another committee member, was there, as well as our Bronx Borough President, Vanessa Gibson, with us here at Marble Hill, where we talked about heat and hot water complaints. There were several issues that were brought forth by the tenants. There was a group of men that was there that are currently in the process of replacing and working on the boiler situation at Marble Hill. As we know, the boiler situation is still one of our capital expense issues that we want to keep in the forefront, because we do know that it takes a lot to heat this what's the word? The complex development. Thank you. I had a senior moment there to heat this development, and we were discussing the changes when it comes down to the hot water. They are in the process of putting the hot water system in a separate from the boiler for heating. So that should mean that there should never be a time where there is no hot water. And with the heating situation, we were hopefully that by the end of 2023, that there will be very mitigated circumstances where there will be no heat. We also had a quick CompStat report from the area that told us that certain things were up for the year. Assaults, burglaries, and grand larcenies were up in the area. So we want to be cognizant of that in Marble Hill area. And we also had Keith Wells, who was I think he was the heating director from NYCHA, that was there to address the issues of the tenants. At this point, what I'd like to do is just to have, if she would like, Ms. Paula Fry to share some words, and following her, Mr. Tony Edwards. Ms. Fry?
Hi, good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing?
Good, how are you?
So some of the things that is going on here in Marble Hill is that we're getting new boilers, and they should be finished by the end of 2023. Me and the TA president on April 11th is gonna do a walk around so we can get some of these ground work done. They're fixing up the garden between 9 and 8, and they look like they're doing a great job. I know there has been an issue with rodents. We're getting with first responders out here to work with that, exterminators. And that's about it.
Thank you. Tony?
Yes, sir. How you doing? I think Ms.
Good,
Fry
how are you?
pretty much said it all. With the exception, quite a few residents have been complaining about the garbage issue. I know Ms. Fry, she had put a measure in place as far as putting bins, because it seemed like the mindset of the majority of the residents, they believe that it's okay to bring the garbage down, bypass the hoppers on each floor, and dispose of the garbage like used luggage in front of the buildings. You know, now what Ms. Fry, what she had initiated was putting these bins, you know, in front of the buildings. And at least it looks a lot neater than just throwing the stuff in front of the doorway of the entrance of every building. But it just seems as though more garbage is being put out than before, you know. And so no matter what measures being taken, not only to have the stuff collected in a more neatly fashion, but even with the amount of pickups that's being put place, it still doesn't alleviate the problem of people still bringing garbage downstairs and placing it in front of the building, you know. And the fear is that, let's say you take away the bins, that now you're going to have like a much larger eyesore, because again, the residents are being used to bypassing the hoppers that's been in these buildings since the buildings have been up. The buildings here, they're about 66 years old, you know, so it's not something that it's not like the hoppers were never there in the first place, but they've been there. But it's just the mindset of the residents. They seem to bypass a mechanism that's in place, that's always been in place, to create their own mechanism to dispose of garbage. And I really don't know what the true answer is to really curb that mindset, you know, except for maybe police enforcement. But that means somebody has to be out there to observe the dumping of the garbage in order for any type of enforcement or fine to be distributed to those offending the property.
Well, I tend to agree with you on that, because I too witnessed a tenant with a bag of garbage, not a small bag, but a large bag, black bag. Get on the elevator with it, take it downstairs, and put it right there against the fence. One of my issues, and I don't know how this is really going to operate, but we have had this scaffold in front of 210 for several years. I don't know what it would take for the work to get done or get done properly to have this scaffold removed, because that is a source of the issue. If you put a bin there, then you attract more rodents to the front of the building. It's already enough garbage and trash that blows past this particular building because of where it is on Broadway, where the garbage collects within the fencing that you have in front. Now you've placed scaffolding that has pretty much been an eyesore. And then a couple of weeks ago, you added to the framing of the scaffolding to where now I've noticed that Accessoride and other buses cannot pick up passengers from in front of the building because there is a bar that prevents them from opening their doors, which means that you would have to walk out, either go to the bus stop or walk out from under the scaffolding to the other bus stop, the BX2 bus stop, in order to be let on. So I think that really is something that we need to look into. I don't know what the issue is, why the scaffolding has to remain up as long as it has. Maybe that's something that we need to address with the buildings department, because it has been several years that this has been up, and now this extra piece has been added to it. You know, you took away part of the aesthetics from the building because the seating is blocked off from the front of the building, and for a certain part of the residents, especially for our seniors, that was a place for them to come out of their house and be able to get a little sun. Now you have a dark space up underneath the scaffolding that has pretty much limited lighting, if lighting sometimes at all. So that's something that really needs to be looked into, and that's going to be pretty much on my agenda once we get this fiscal year budget request done, because we've dealt with this for long enough, and the garbage situation, especially like I said, in this building, has gotten worse because people feel the need to put their garbage up against the fence. And if there is no fencing there, then that would have the people to walk it around to where it goes. So we need to come up with some type of answer here that we can get on record as to see why the scaffolding has to remain the way it is, and some type of deadline for it to come down. And that's something that I'm not going to back down off of, even if we have to get some of the elected officials involved with trying to see what the issue is, because it has been way long enough. It has been an eyesore long enough, because in other parts of the city where the demographics are different, to put it in a politically correct way, the scaffoldings do not remain. So we need to have the same treatment and the same access to our apartments, to our apartment buildings as they do. So we need to work on that and to get it done as soon as we can. Tony, are you done? You done?
For now.
Okay, sounds good. So at this point, what I want to do is to just, like I said, I'm checking here. Let's see. I see Julie Reyes, our committee member, has joined us. Thank you for coming on, Julie. Hope all is well. Thank you all for the others that have joined us tonight in our meeting. Like I said, we want to discuss some of our budget requests, our capital budget requests for this fiscal year of 2024. Like I said, my main suggestion is that we continue along almost in the same vein as we did last year, where the boilers are yet priority. That will be my number one priority for this fiscal year 2024, that the boiler work stays on track, and that by the end of 2023, the monies and the funds are there so that the work can be completed in a timely fashion. It's lingered long enough, so it's time now to get it done. Mr. Edwards has introduced us to the people that are working diligently. So I see no reason for the process to continue to drag out. So I want to continue to have this on our budget list as a priority. Also, one thing that I also would like to continue is for monies to be set aside for personnel to monitor security cameras, because as in other developments, sometimes the front door is left wide open. If it's not left open, it is broken open. So we need to see how this is happening, who it's coming from, whether it be tenants or outside influences that are breaking the doors so that they can remain unlocked. And also, I've noticed that with this new scaffolding that they have added piece, now there are certain issues with the sidewalks. So also, I want to keep that on our budget priority, that our walkways be looked after and fixed, repaved to mitigate any type of falling hazards. Julie, you have any questions or anything to mention?
No. Well, I do have a question in regards to, and I'm sorry if you've already mentioned this, with NYCHA, the replacement of the boilers, that's all been completed?
No, ma'am. They're looking at the end of 2023 for the work to be completed. They're working in two separate phases to where they are in the process of separating the hot water system from the actual boiler system, so that they're not tied in together. So it won't be a situation where you don't have hot water, so they are in the process.
And then,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
That you're referring to a domestic hot water system separate from the heating system, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, a few years back, we had for the housing committee a request in the budget request for the capital for site improvement of the playground fences parking lot, and also a request for community-based centers or common space areas for the youth and the senior citizens. Is that on the list at all, or has that been completed? That was on the budget request maybe about 2 years ago.
Well, I don't believe that has been completed. I don't recall discussing that last year as one of our capital requests. I don't know, and Tony or Ms. Fry, I don't know, maybe you can chime in on this aspect. If there has been any improvements or upgrades to the playground within the last 2 years, because when I go out there, I do notice that the playground, especially like I said, behind 210, is in need of some repair. But has there been any other areas in the facility that have been worked on within the last couple of years?
I'd like to, well, I would like to add behind 210, what has been a slight improvement is the restoration of the benches. I believe the slabs are not only being painted, but they're being replaced with new wooden slabs. That's on the smaller side of the development, which includes building 210 or building 10 and 11. Across the street with a much larger portion of the development. There has been some improvement as far as the seating. There has actually been new benches put in place. They're mostly metal benches. But as far as playground area, nothing has been added at this time. And I would have to look back at my notes, and I believe there was a request to the city council to try to provide some funding so we get a new type of apparatus for the 2 playgrounds on the opposite side or on the larger side of the development. So there is some modification, but not a whole lot. But like I said, it's work in progress.
Right, the funding request was put in 2020. Well, it actually made the list for the budget request in 2020 from CBA. And also for centers for the youth and the senior citizens. Is there any centers, Tony, for the youth and the senior
Now with the center,
citizens?
well, with the community center, what's going on is supposed to go through upgrade. All right, what happened, there's been a cost, inflationary cost to the project, where it originally started off at $1 million. And because of the delay, coupled with a pandemic, the cost has grown to, the last time it was, well, it grown up to 1.6 million. Come to find out, it's still short by like over $135,000 that they're looking for. Now, before Councilmember Rodriguez, before he left his office, you know, a request was made to him to see if they can make up the difference. Now, with the new council member, Carmen De La Rosa, the request has also been made to her to see what she could do on her end to put that additional money that's requested to continue the improvement of the community center. Now, last time I spoke, or last conversation I had with people in NYCHA, there's an issue with the designs. They're waiting for the approval of the current drawings. And as of this month, they're supposed to actually hope to have a decision whether they can move forward or not. Again, I will keep everybody informed once I get the information, and thank you for bringing it up, because yes, I kind of like fell asleep at the wheel as far as following up on that issue, but trust me, by the end of the week, I'll have some sort of answer for everybody.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Let's see. Margaret, I see your hand up.
Hi. So it's just a point of clarification from Julie's question. And maybe this is what you were clarifying, but so the boilers in like that repair is already underway, right? That's something that has been allocated or has been earmarked, and there aren't any sort of over budget concerns with that, right? So it doesn't, I mean, David, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but as long as it's been allocated, it was award, right? It was part of our discretionary ask last year. So do we need to ask for it again? Or is it just something that we need to keep harassing the city on?
I don't think that anything, to be quite frank, I don't think that any movement on the boilers came out of our budget submission last year. I think, no pun intended, but I think a fire was lit under NYCHA to get moving on this. And I get the impression it came from other quarters. Reading the documents that came from OMB and the comments that came back, I believe that it was, they were just saying that these certain things had progressed. I have not gotten the impression that it came from our capital budget request. I mean, I'm very glad to see some progress, but at a gut level, I don't get the impression that it came from our budget requests.
Okay, well, nonetheless, it's moving forward. Is that correct, or does it need an additional budget ask? I just want to know whether this stays at the top of our budget ask or whether this is already moving forward, and we just have to keep an eye on it, kind of thing, and keep pushing.
It's a fair question and I don't have an answer for it. I think, Ted, that's actually a good question for you to, and Kira to ask of the NYCHA people. Where
Yeah.
exactly it stands in the process, what funding is in place, and what kind of schedule is there. I get the impression it's progressing appropriately, but I wouldn't stake my life on it. I think it's a good question for Ted to ask with Kira and NYCHA.
From the
And
meeting.
just for clarification, the boiler issue did come out of the housing committee, and it was in the budget for quite a few years up until last year. Last year was all parks and another committee. Housing didn't even make the cut. But for the past 3 years prior to that, the housing committee worked diligently with that, and the people from Marble Hill and the other housing unit were very cooperative, and we had many meetings. So it did come from the budget for at least 3 years, because Paul worked very hard on that.
Yeah, yes, no.
But last year we didn't make the the cut. There was nothing with housing on the budget request, which I find amazing.
I would have to check that. That's not my recollection of it, but what I was commenting
Okay.
on is where the decisions from NYCHA came from. I just have not gotten the impression it came out of the capital budget request cycle.
Okay.
But regardless, at this point, I think it behooves Ted to work to speak with Kira and with NYCHA to confirm exactly what the schedule is.
Right.
Right. From the meetings that we had on the 3rd, like I said, we met with representatives of the company that is doing the work. There is an approved GDA action plan that they have had showed us that was allocated. Right now they're working on 9 different developments, but Marble Hill with 6 boilers has, and this is just the total from phase 1, but their budget for Marble Hill is $13,737,600. The work has started on the boilers already. They have the design end, the designing stage of it that ended back in August of 2020. The procurement date was in November of 2020. Now the construction end date is they're looking at December of 2022, and then the anticipated completion date of all the work by June of 2023. So they're looking at approximately 44 months of time from beginning to end with this project. So by us right now being in 2023, we're looking at approximately about another year and some change before the work is completed in 2023. They're saying here June 1st, but from my understanding and hearing what they're saying, they're actually looking at the end of 2023 and not so much the summer of 2023. If that
November, I'm sorry for interrupting. I believe they mentioned November of 2023. That's the projected end date for this project. I know that the money came from the state, because the city and state they put monies together for a lot of the NYCHA developments for boilers and elevators. Our portion, you're correct, is 13.7 million. But that was based upon the, as you said, GDA grant disbursement agreement, which is coming from the state. So essentially, their start date was back in October, and it was mapped out. And what I had passed out at our meeting showed you pretty much a guideline of how the project's supposed to progress. And as of now, they seem like they're pretty much on schedule. You know, there's a concern with one of the buildings, and it has to do with extermination. But other than that, it seemed like they're moving right along. They're moving on schedule. There is a concern though, and this has nothing to do with the budget, but the concern is because they have to put up a temporary boiler soon and bring that onto the property, they have to take over one of the smaller parking lot that's right next to the power plant or to the heating plant. I reached out, maybe this is where you guys can help me out. I reached out to council member De La Rosa. I asked her to work with me to contact Target to see if it's possible that for quite some time, could at least 10 parking spots be made available to the residents who's going to be displaced because of the takeover of that small parking lot was directly across the street from Target. As this time, I have not heard anything from her based upon my request. And I cannot go at this alone. I would like to have the additional horsepower, so to speak, from an elected official. And maybe you guys is where you guys can also join in and make this request with, it's not even Target, but the actual property owner, which is Washington Square Partnership. All right. I know years ago, it was a gentleman named Paul Travis. He's like the main person of that partnership. And I've reached out to the office, but have been unable to speak with them. And again, I'll put on the record. I asked a councilwoman to assist me in this process. And at this time, as of right now, I still have not got a return response from her as far as her assistance.
Okay.
I mean, but the timeline that Mr. Edwards laid out, that's pretty concerning that they're going to start this work at the end of, did you say 2023?
It's supposed to be
2022?
completed by November
Oh, okay.
2023.
Ted, I think it
So,
would be
and they're
useful.
going to start it, and they're going to start when?
No, it's already started. It's
Already,
already
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in
Ted, I think it
And
might
how
be
did-
worthwhile to get out the schedule to all the members of the committee. I just wanted to make a comment, Julie. I just went back just to clarify or correct a point that you made. Not only did housing have more than zero capital requests, housing had the #1 capital request out of CB8 last year, specifically for boilers and roofing repairs, and then the #7 for the new walkways and sidewalk makeover. So it clearly was included in CB8's capital request for the fiscal year starting July 1. The most
The
recent.
office needs to update the website then, because that's not what's on the website.
Okay,
I'll send a note to Kira.
okay.
Thanks for the update, but that's not what's on the website.
But it says fiscal year 2023.
No, I'm looking at the website and it's for the most recent, it shows nothing for the most recent request, which was last year, I would imagine. And then the 3 years prior.
Most recent
housing is
request
on it.
was made in October for fiscal year 2023, which we just got. We just got the response back from OMB 3 weeks ago, and will be put into effect July 1st.
Okay, that's not on the website.
Okay, that may very well be. I don't know, but I'm just telling you what was submitted by Community Board 8 last October after the budget hearing.
Yeah, because I got an email from Kara, and those things were indeed on the budget. I don't, like you said, I didn't remember the exact prioritization of it, but I do remember those things being a part of the budget. So if need be, because I have to speak with Kara after this meeting, and I'll just let her know that the website needs to be updated with the information.
Not only that, share it with the members.
Gotcha. And I'll also the information that I read off to you was given out by Tony. It was just a page from the report of it was the fiscal 2022 preliminary capital budget. Yeah, I'll get that out to you guys also, so that you can at least see part of what their timeline looks like for the different developments that's being worked on right now. So at this time, I know that we have Julie and Margaret here with us on this evening. Do you have any other requests, any other prioritization ideas, or something that you may want to see added to the budgetary request for this fiscal 2024?
I'm sorry, Ted. Julie, please go back and look at the website. I just downloaded it for fiscal year 2023. It is number 1, as I said, and actually the sidewalks are number 6, not number 7. It is on our website. I don't know what you looked at, but you may want to double check.
I'm looking
Sorry,
at CBA. I'm looking at CBA website. You know, we'll discuss this offline, but I'm looking at the website right now. But thank you
Well, which
anyway.
page are you looking at? Which page are you
We'll talk
looking
about
at?
this offline. Well, there's a heavy agenda going on. Let's just move it on.
Give me a call, Julie.
Ted,
Yeah.
so these requests are for the Marble Hill site, correct? Do we have requests for the Fort Independence site? Are there any other sites that we should be keeping in mind here?
Fort Independence is another site. In looking at what we discussed in our previous year, I have not gotten an update in regards to the work that we had talked about for Fort Independence. So I would just like to continue with the budgetary request. If you give me a moment, I'll go back here.
Is there an I walk past Fort Independence every day, and you know, from your description of a lot of the same sanitation issues at Marble Hill, is there a capital request that we could make on behalf of both sites? I know that they're struggling with the same thing. You know, they don't really have the, you know, a lot of the stuff is left on the curb just for, you know, the truck to come pick it up. But, you know, that leaves a lot of trash and just discarded items right on the sidewalk, and people are taking their, you know, baby carriages back and forth, and people are, you know, doing whatever they need to do. So is there, I guess, in terms of sanitation, or maybe even like garbage, you know, I'm thinking of even like Europe, where they have those containers that are adjacent to the street that people can dump their items in, and then it's not like such a big obstruction in front of the building, and it leads to a nicer space and property and those sorts of things. Is anyone familiar with other NYCHA buildings, and if they've been successful with other like sanitation or containers to keep trash and things like that to a minimum?
Well, here at Marble Hill, there is a designated area that has a compactor pretty much on, it's out front of 230th Street, leading into the parking area. So that's a designated space where people can go and take their garbage. Unfortunately, like I said, because the scaffolding has been up for so long and this fencing has been up around the scaffolding, people have seen fit to, as opposed to walking it up the block and taking it to this designated area, they just come out of the building now and drop it there against the fence, leaving it for housing personnel to come and clean up. You know, and I know Mr. Edwards had, you know, had spoken about it. If that means that there needs to be, like you said, some type of policing situation, if there has to be some type of fining type of situation, signs that say no dumping in lieu of fine. There has to be something done because it's creating more work for the personnel. It's creating a health hazard to residents because it attracts more rodents, and it's just an eyesore. And like I said, when I look back at the fiscal year 2023 expense request, there was issue in regards to sanitation services. And part of that was to have additional personnel added to the NYCHA sanitation teams. So that was
yeah, so maybe that now that you're saying it, I do remember that from last year. So
yeah.
maybe we keep that at the top of our list too. I think, as I'm reflecting on when folks have asked for additional sanitation support around like the 231st or 238 train stops, I think an additional ask could be, to go directly to council members for that kind of thing. Or I'm not sure that it fits into our expense request, but I definitely support that staying. I guess it's not number one, but it's near the top.
Yeah, that's something that I think that should be one of the major and main asks, is that we do get more personnel, because like I said, the garbage situation, I don't understand the mindset of the people, but they allow people to live in these developments that aren't really vested or don't really care about the living circumstances. So they feel okay with just dropping their garbage in front of where they live and where other people live. And there has to be something done where that's not deemed acceptable, because people continue to do it and there are no type of ramifications for doing this. So,
I mean, how does everyone feel about like education campaigns and those sorts of things? I mean, you see it all the time. Folks are leaving garbage in front of their doorstep, and then at the same time, you're paying more in rat abatement, and everyone's like, "What's happening? Why are we having all these rats?" Well, because you're leaving food and everything in front of your doorstep. So, I mean, is that part of an expense request, education campaigns at the NYCHA facilities, or I don't know. I mean, I hear you on like fines and stuff like that, but is there something else we can do?
Well, I think that's important. If there's some type of literature that can be put together and given out to the tenants, if there's some signage that can be put up, so that there is some level of accountability to the tenants. And if we've given you information, warning you or telling you that putting trash in front of the development, in front of the buildings, outside of designated areas is not permitted. If you're being told that possible fines can be levied against you or tickets can be issued, I think at that point, it just has to be what it's going to be. You unfortunately you can't change the mindset of some people, but you can be more proactive in taking some sort of preventative measures to make sure that this doesn't happen. Because the summer is coming and we don't need to have smelly garbage, piled up on 80, 90-degree days in front of our buildings, because that continues to happen. So something somewhere has to take place, to prevent this from continuing. Don't know what it's going to take, don't know who is going to take the first step, whether it is Ms. Fry from the management aspect of it. There has to be something or someone that can do something so that the that the area can be kept, relatively clean. It's a quality of life issue, let alone, like I said, a health issue for attracting rodents, let alone an aesthetic issue. Because like I said, especially at this particular corner, because it has 2 bus stops and it sits at a corner, and the wind pretty much blows the trash from up towards Broadway into this little corner area, and it's pretty much blown up into this fencing that surrounds this scaffolding in a large part, pretty much the entire front of the building. So the area, it stays dirty. It's hardly ever clean. Like I said, the pavement, even in front of the building, is uneven and broken up. So these are issues that have to be addressed, and it's like, there's so many other issues that it's claimed that nothing can be done, but you constantly hear about these things in the city. You say that you want to get the lead out, of our apartments. So what do? They bring people in to look at lead in the walls and the paint. You say that NYCHA is a non-smoking development, but yet on a regular basis, I have to smell cigarette and marijuana smoke, coming from the people that live beneath us. So this is something that's on a regular basis. If you make a complaint or if you say something, unfortunately, someone has to see it. But when personnel come to the house and they have to go to these people's apartments and they smell smoke, then I think that something needs to be done in that area, but it just can't continue to remain the same. And that's the problem, because as long as things remain the same, unfortunately, the worse they get, and I think that NYCHA as a whole, from a management standpoint, from an upper management standpoint, have to be more proactive on quality of life issues within these developments, including dealing with the homeless, in the stairwells. And, it's a lot that needs to be addressed. But right now, all we can do is get these budgetary requests submitted. If you have something that you would like to see, we discussed a few things, but truthfully, it's pretty much some of the same requests that we had for 2023. But if there's anything else that you would like to see for these developments, like I said, for Fort Independence, for Marble Hill, and for housing in the general area, it's not just in regards to NYCHA and the developments. When we say we're a housing committee for the entire portfolio. So we want to also consider anything else that we need to think about to make housing in general a topic, to make it more available, more affordable for the entire area and our footprint that we operate in.
Ted, I sent you something to your email pertaining to the garbage. There's a program that was developed some time ago. When you have the opportunity, just go through it. It has some ideas where it does request the usage of the police department and the cameras.
Okay.
It's best that you look through it, get an idea, get a feel for it, and then maybe we could discuss it at a later time.
Okay. Well, what email did you send it to?
I only have one email of yours.
Okay, the BX one.
Is it the BX one? I think it's. I'll tell you in a second. It's
I think that should be the only one.
Ted Morris, BX CB8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Ted, in the same vein, going along with Margaret's request of ways to sort of hide garbage, there's actually just this week, there's been a lot said about having the city look at containerizing trash, so as to not just have black bags strewn all over the street. So you may want to talk to Bob Fanuzzi, the chair of Environment and Sanitation, to see what he knows of that, what progress may have been made, or that's something that you two want to, pursue together, because that does sound like a neater, cleaner, safer, healthier way to approach things.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'll definitely speak to him, and if there's something that we can possibly add to the budget request as far as containment. Unfortunately, from my personal standpoint, it's honestly not a containment issue, because there is a gated space where people can go and take their trash on 230th Street next to the parking lot. On Broadway, there is a space where they can go and take their recyclables and put it behind the door where it's not really visible. The only thing in that area is that housing personnel have to come along and dump it to make sure that the area stays relatively clean. But there are places where it is appropriate to leave the garbage. So I'm not going to so much put my I guess my vote or my thought behind putting a container in front of the building for people to put garbage, because of the scaffolding that is up there. The walkway in itself is very dark, and it's not all that wide to begin with. So we don't need something in front of the building, because there's also a walkway that leads downhill to access to another room, another part of the building. So
That's
that
my
can't be
office.
exactly where your office is. So that can't be blocked off there, and like I said, the walkway coming from Broadway is too narrow to have anything sitting there. So I'm not going to say that it's okay to put another container in front of this building, because the space has been taken up by this scaffolding and by this extra fencing. So there really is no place to put any type of container, or bin for people to put their garbage in. There just has to be something extra done to prevent this from happening. And I think at a certain point, the responsibility has to be put back on the residents, and like I said, whether it be in the way of fines or what, I'm not against that, because there's no reason for you to, like Tony said, they're hoppers, there's where you can put your garbage down into. There's chutes you can drop your garbage down out of your apartment. Why take the garbage out of your apartment and bring it all the way downstairs in the elevator and drop it in front of the building outside, where you can just go out of your apartment, take it to the compactor chute, and drop it down? So I'm not going to put some request in for a bin or a container to go in front of the building when there already are designated spaces for garbage to go, because then that's redundant and it's not necessary. And it honestly isn't prudent because of the space. And like I said, especially here at this particular location, because of this large scaffolding, there just has to be something done. The building behind me, when I go through that block, garbage is piled up against the fence, on 228th Street. So, like I said, there has to be something more. And if the compactors aren't open for people to use, then we have to get those things fixed and worked out so they can dump their garbage properly and not have to take it outside. But this
to back away from.
Because like I said, an issue that crosses several lines. Like I said, from an aesthetic standpoint, from a health standpoint, it's just it's too much. And there's one thing we deal enough in housing with certain issues, and garbage placement should not be one of them. We're human beings, and we have to live like human beings. And if certain people don't want to do what they're supposed to as human beings, then there has to be some ramifications, for their actions. I'm pretty much tired of having to see garbage, or I come out, 7:30 in the morning, and it's like I'm looking at rats run across the walkways. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So I'm not, all that inclined to ask for some type of container, but I will speak to Bob to see exactly, what other ideas he might have or has come up with. But there are already designated spaces for trash, and people have to know you must take it there, or there will be some type of issue. And that's it. So I'm going to go back as far as priority goes. Unfortunately, there are only 3 of us on the line this evening as far as committee members. But what I will ask, as far as priority goes, from Margaret and from Julie, what would you feel comfortable with as far as priority? Would you want some of the same, I guess, prioritization to go from last year, where we kept the boilers as the number 1 priority, or because that they've been worked on or they're being worked on, would you want to drop it down some? So I'll just need you ladies' input on that, because I don't want to continue to hold you much longer.
I would say check with Laura and Kira. My understanding is from past, and things could change, is that once you take it off and if it's not completed, then you have to start all the way back from the bottom of the list. That if it's something that you really want, keep it on until completed. But speak with Kira and Laura and be guided by them, because Laura's been on the board forever and Kira knows the system.
Oh yeah,
And
no, I'm
I'm
not saying taking off by any means. No. I'm just saying,
okay.
as far as prioritization goes, do you want to continue with the prioritization of that being number 1, or do you want to bring it down to number 2 and, what I'm saying, move something else up in that slot? Or would you just want that, pretty much things to remain in the order, pretty much of what we had from last season? But as far as coming off, none of these things are coming off, our budget requests. They're going to stay where they are.
I'm not having a good time. I'm not having a good time online because I still can, for the life of me. I got Dave's information, and thank you, Lee, for sending me the updated information. And every time I plug in Community Board 8 budget, I don't get, thankfully Lee sent me the information, but
okay,
I can't get it. So I would defer. I'll listen to you and Margaret. I'm going to listen to what you guys say, because visually I don't see anything. Sorry about that.
Julie, I sent it to you as well. There's a link right there to go directly to our page, and about 3/4
I am, but
down.
for some reason where I am, I don't know why. I'm not like too far away. I keep getting an old link, but I'm gonna listen and then I'll chime in. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Okay, so
I'm fine with keeping the priorities as last year.
Okay, so then I'm in agreement with that. So what we'll do David, is pretty much keep what we have as far as our budget requests and our prioritizations in the order from last season. So I just need to talk to you to see how we can do that, from last year, as far as the boilers go, the security, the walkways, things of that nature.
Yeah, that's fine. Give me a call, particularly given your computer hassles.
Yeah.
I think we may need to work a little more closely on this one to see if I can help you out with that. I'm sorry you're going through that, but yeah, just give me a phone call. And we have 3 or 4 weeks. So
Okay.
I mean, technically, you and your committee don't have to vote on this until next month to get it in by March 20th, but it sounds like you're pretty much in agreement. But give me a call and we'll work out the details.
Okay. Yeah, it won't be tonight, but I'll definitely
no,
do
that's
that.
fine. Like I said, there's 3 or 4 weeks. So
Okay. Will do. And hopefully by then, maybe I'll be back up and running.
best wishes. I know what a pain it can be.
Yeah, it's definitely annoying. So if we're done with that portion, I want to thank all of you for your input, with Margaret and Julie, for David, you guys for your assistance and your input with our budgetary requests for fiscal year 2024. I received an email. Moving on to now some new business. I received an email in regards to a virtual tenant resource fair. It's taking place on the 31st of March at 6 to 8 p.m. Via Zoom. It's being sponsored by the St. Nick's Alliance. And some of the things they'll be discussing is housing protections due to COVID-19, rent protection for low-income and rent-regulated families, HPD housing lottery, which they're calling Housing Connect, as well as housing discrimination protections. So we also want to keep in mind that from our previous meeting with Ricardo Campos, the acting director of the Office to Protect Tenants, we want to encourage tenants to continue to take advantage of ERAP, the right to counsel hotline. If you guys need those numbers, I can get those numbers to you. Housing court, they want to make sure that the tenants are represented if they have to appear in housing court. So we want to keep abreast on those matters as well as we consider this virtual tenant resource fair. If you guys haven't received the email, I'll ask Kara to forward it to you. And if you can disseminate it to anyone that you might know that might be interested, that would be appreciated, because I will do the same on my end. If they have Zoom, they'll be able to log right into the meeting. I think it's slated for 2 hours from 6 p.m. To 8 p.m. on the 31st, which is this coming Thursday. So I will try to be on the line and hear the presentation as well, and try to get this information out. I'll even pass it off to Ms. Fry and to Tony to maybe get this out to anyone that they feel might be interested in being a part of it.
Thank you.
So with that being said, are there any other questions, any other interests, any other concerns that we may have missed on tonight? Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on, being a part of this meeting, for all of your input, and just being here, and your continual support of the Housing Committee. Of course, as in recent days, The Housing Committee continues to stand with the people of Ukraine, and we are yet praying for them and the end to this war, this takeover of Ukraine by the Soviet Union. And of course, we also want to remember families that have been displaced by fire, families of gun violence, young girl, believe it was last night, yesterday, another young child shot in the shoulder. Thankfully, she will survive the encounter. But gun violence continues to run rampant through our cities. So we want to be careful as we go in and out. We also want to make sure that through the Housing Committee that security is yet an utmost importance. I do keep in contact with the precinct. There are certain demographics, certain areas that have increased, but thankfully one of those areas that has not increased is murders and gun violence in the general area of the 50th precinct. So we want to be mindful of what goes on in our neighborhoods. So thank you once again for your attendance on tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. And until next time, I will, like I said, try to get these emails, work with Kara to get these emails out to you guys so you can look them over. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. All right. Thank you all and have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.